Hi class, so again my name is Miss Celine and right now I'm going to discuss to you our first lesson here in understanding the self. Defining the self, personal and developmental perspectives on self and identity. The self from various philosophical perspectives. Let's go first and define the objectives for this lesson. Lesson objectives. At the end of this lesson, you should be able to, first, explain why is it essential to understand the self. Second, describe and discuss the different notions of the self from the points of view of the various philosophers across time and place. Compare and contrast how the self has been represented in different philosophical schools. And lastly, examine oneself against the different views of self that were discussed in class. So basically, in this lesson, we are going to focus on the different philosophers that contributed to the definition of the self. Alright, now let's start first with the famous philosophers Socrates and Plato. Socrates was the first philosopher who ever engaged in a systematic questioning about the self. The true task of the philosopher is to know oneself. So according to Socrates, we are able to know oneself by asking the right questions. If we were asked the right questions, or if we ask ourselves the right questions or the others, we will be able to know ourselves more. Actually, some of the people doesn't know that they're intelligent enough until the right questions were asked. For Socrates, every man is composed of body and soul. All individuals have an imperfect, impermanent aspect to him, and the body while maintaining that there is also a soul that is perfect and permanent. So according to Socrates, each one of us has a body and also a soul. And every one of us is not perfect, and all of us are trying our best to actually understand ourselves as well. And because of that, we understand, even though we are imperfect, at least our soul is perfect and also permanent. So in simple terms, Socrates is actually highlighting that we understand ourselves in the point of view that we have a body and also a soul. Though we are not perfect, at least our soul is something that is perfect and also permanent. Plato supported the idea that man is a dual nature of both body and soul. So this is what I kept mentioning a while ago, that our body or our being, each one of us composes of a body and also a soul. Plato added that there are three components of the soul: the rational, the spirited soul, and the appetitive soul. So the rational soul, this is the one who thinks in a very rational way. The spirited soul, which connects to the being, and the appetitive soul, which is the one that is hungry and also looks for something in meaning and many more. So I hope that's clear with Plato and Socrates. So Socrates is the one who's actually interested on knowing someone and looking at someone at a very holistic perspective, which considers as a body and also a soul. That's actually also what's considered by Plato. Now let's go to Augustine and Thomas Aquinas. So actually these two are very known in the Catholic Church as saints and also founders. Now let's go and look at their definition of self. Augustine agreed that man is of bifurcated nature. The body is bound to die on earth, and the soul is anticipate living eternally in a realm of spiritual bliss and communion with God. So according to Augustine, as you can see, it's very more on a Christian way, or in a very in a view of Christianity. Augustine believed that our body would die, but our soul will go in a realm where there is eternal life or eternal death. I'm saying that there is an eternal death because, of course, again, That's how the Catholic Church view on where our souls be after we die. The body can only thrive in the imperfect physical reality in that is the world, whereas the soul can also stay after death in an eternal realm with all the transcendent God. So like what I've mentioned a while ago, our body in here, our life here on earth is something that is not permanent, and whatever you do in here, it's not permanent. What's permanent is our soul, and our soul is the one that is being judged, and that one, it would be in communion with God. So as you can see, that's the view of Augustine and Thomas Aquinas. So I just want to interconnect the theories or the point of views of the two philosophers or two group of philosophers that we've talked a while ago. As you can see, Socrates also have some sort of view like our body will decay one day and our soul is something that is perfect, just like in here in Augustine and Thomas Aquinas. They believe that our body will decompose in the future and we will die, but our soul will not. So as you can see, it's almost the same, but Augustine and Thomas Aquinas has this notion of having God and communication with God. Aquinas said that indeed man is composed of two parts, matter and form. Matter, or HYLE in Greek, refers to the common stuff that makes up everything in the universe. Man's body is part of this matter. Form, on the other hand, or morph, in Greek refers to the essence of a substance or thing. So as you can see here, Aquinas defined that there are two parts of a man. So matter and form. So again, matter, this is the one that is part of the universe. And that also include our body. And on the other hand, the form, this is the essence of the living. So I can say, I can connect here, this is the soul. To Aquinas, the soul is what animates the body. It is what makes us human. So without the soul, we are not human. Without the soul, we are just bodies. And for them, it's actually a bit impossible. I mean, it's not a bit, but it's actually impossible for them. Now let's go to the famous mathematician Rene Descartes. So according to Rene Descartes, conceived of the human person as having a body and a mind. So Augustine and also Aquinas and also Socrates, they all believe that there's a body and a soul. But in Rene Descartes, he believes that there is a mind. So body and mind. So the body is nothing else but a machine that is attached to the mind. The human person has it, but it is not what makes a man. If at all, that is the mind. So for him, we have a body, but it will not function if there is a mind, if there's no mind in it. So for him, the mind is actually not necessarily part of it's not necessarily, actually the mind is part of the body. However, it is actually the control system that makes our body functional, and not just functional. I mean, our brain does that, but having to live or having an essence of being human, thinking, feeling, and many more is because of our mind. That's according to Rene Descartes. David Hume in here is also famous, if I'm not mistaken, is a mathematician. So the self is not an entity over and beyond the physical body. So for him, entity is, or ourself, it does not work beyond our physical body. So he believes that it's integrated to us. So ourself is integrated to the body. Man can only attain knowledge by experience. So self is something that is integrated into our body. It's part of our physical body, and for us to know more about life and more about our being, we have to experience it first. Self, according to Hume, is simply a bundle or collection of different perceptions which succeed each other with an inconceivable rapidity and are in a perpetual flux and movements. So according to Hume, self is a collection of all our experiences, and that's what makes us, or that's what makes the self. Let's go to Immanuel Kant. So I believe Immanuel Kant is a philosopher. So according to him, things that men perceive around them are not just randomly infused with the human person, without an organizing principle that regulates the relationship of all of these impressions. So the things around us does not just happen by chance. So he believes it happens because it is something that is embedded within us, and with our principle of organizing, we are able to regulate it. So there is necessarily a mind that organizes the impressions that men get from the external world. So in here, according to Immanuel Kant, further is that our mind, whenever we experience something, it is being collected, and also our mind was able to be the one who organized it. Further, time and space are ideas that one cannot find in the world, but inbuilt, our mind, he calls these apparatuses of the mind. So, according to Kant, time and space, these are ideas that something that cannot be explained in a concept or in a sense, scientifically, because it's a philosophical in nature, that time and space, this consists of the ideas that interrelates to our minds. The self is not just what gives one his personality. It is also the seat of knowledge, acquisition for all human person. So our self, the definition for Immanuel Kant of self, it is not just us, or I mean the personality, the one that is observable by others, the ones that actually being defined by others. It is not just that. It's not a personality. It is actually a knowledge. It's also a knowledge. It's a very powerful being that can keep all the knowledge as well. So it's not just something that if you die, you will go to heaven and you will lose everything, you will forget someone and many more. But it's actually when you're leaving, I mean, you're now alive, it is actually integrated to you. It is part of your knowledge. It's something that you can actually do because of that. So that is the self. Gilbert Ryle, on the other hand, looked at self differently. Blatantly denying the concept of an internal, non-physical self, what truly matters is the behavior that a person manifests in his day-to-day life. So according to him, self is not an entity one can locate and analyze, but simply the convenient name that people use to refer to all the behaviors that people make. So according to Gilbert Ryle, self are behaviors. These are behaviors that we actually show unto the world. That is the self. Self is just a name that is given for us to easily understand ourselves, but the definition of self is actually the behaviors that we put out in the world, and that itself is Self by Gilbert Ryle. Let's go to Merleau-Ponty. So he is a philosopher. So according to him, the mind and body are so intertwined that they cannot be separated from one another. So if Aquinas believes that we can leave our bodies behind when we die, so is Socrates. Merleau-Ponty actually looks at it differently. When you die, your mind and your body and mind goes together. It cannot be separated, no matter what. So one cannot find any experience that is not an embodied experience. All experience is embodied. One's body in his opening towards his existence to the world. So as you can see in here, all experiences are being together. It's part of the mind and also our body, and it helps us exist to our world right now. The living body, his thoughts, emotions, and experiences are all one. So like what I've said a while ago, the mind and the body, according to Ponti, everything is just the same. I mean, not the same per se, but are together. It works, they work together. So now we're done with the philosophers. Now let's summarize our discussion. Philosophy is replete with men and women who inquired into the fundamental nature of the self. That's why we have a lot of definition of the self, and most of them are defined by philosophers. Socrates was the first philosopher who ever engaged in a systematic questioning about the self. So Socrates in here believes that if you have, or if you just ask the right questions, you will be able to understand oneself. And actually, he believed that our mind and body, our body and soul are separated. Plato supported the idea that man is dual nature of body and soul. Augustine agreed that man is of bifurcated nature. Thomas Aquinas said that indeed man is composed of two parts, matter and form. So as you can see, Augustine and Thomas Aquinas viewed everything as a whole, and also with the, not just a whole, but in two forms, like the body and mind, and also the body, yes, body and soul, and also the matter and form. So Augustine and Aquinas actually viewed self in a very Christian way. So Rene Descartes conceived of the human person as having a body and mind. So like what I've said a while ago, the mind, this is the mental process. They viewed Hume, the self is not an entity over and beyond the physical body. So he believes that the self is part of the physical body. It's not anything that is better or good or performs better than the body. Immanuel Kant, the philosopher, there is necessarily a mind that organizes the impression that men get from the external world. So if I said in my quiz, which is a person who organizes all of our behaviors and then put it into part of ourself, that's Immanuel Kant. Gilbert RYLE, self is not an entity one can locate and analyze. This is something that is given. The word self is actually just a given. It's actually more than that. It goes beyond. And then lastly, Merleau-Ponty, the living body, his thoughts, emotions, and experiences are all one. So Merleau-Ponty looks at everything as if they're together. They function together, they work together, and they act together. That's according to Merleau-Ponty. So that's it. I hope everything is clear. Please let me know if you have any questions, and I'll be seeing you again next time. Thank you, and see you then.